You think you need to work harder, push longer, hustle more, but wealth doesn't start with effort, it starts with mindset. Because if your mind believes money is scarce, you'll sabotage abundance every time it tries to find you. You'll reject opportunity. You'll shrink. You'll stay broke in spirit even when money shows up. What if I told you your bank account isn't the real problem? Your programming is. And until you rewire your beliefs, no strategy will save you. So let's fix the root. Let's reprogram your mind for wealth that actually lasts. You think you have a money problem, but you don't. You have a thinking problem. Because long before your paycheck arrives, before the bank statement hits your inbox, before any decision is made with your wallet, your mind already decided what you were worth. And most people, they're living out a financial story they didn't even write. It was handed to them by parents who struggled, by schools that taught survival, by a world that told them money is hard, wealth is rare, and success belongs to someone else. And because they never questioned it, they obey it every day. They sabotage opportunity. They resist abundance. They spend like victims and work like prisoners. Why? Because somewhere deep inside, they believe money isn't for them, that they're not those kind of people, that life is meant to be tight and wealth is reserved for others. It's not conscious. It's programmed. You were trained to think this way, and until you change that script, you'll keep playing the same role, no matter how hard you work, no matter how smart you are. Because your external results will never rise above your internal beliefs. That's why people chase strategies, buy books, try side hustles, and still feel broke. It's not because they're lazy. It's because their mind is running on a file called not enough. And that file overrides every plan. So here's the truth. You don't need more money. You need a new mind. You need to uninstall the software that says you'll always struggle. You need to delete the belief that says working harder is the only way. You need to rewrite the narrative that says money is dangerous, wealth is selfish, and you're not allowed to want more. Because none of that is truth. It's conditioning. And you're allowed to change it. You're allowed to choose a new financial story. One that says money is a tool, not a threat. That says wealth is built, not given. That says you are capable, worthy, and ready. But here's the catch. You can't just think it once. You have to install it, reinforce it, make it the new script your mind runs every time money enters the room. This is where reprogramming begins. Not with numbers, but with thoughts. Because if your mind still believes you're not meant for wealth, then every dollar you touch will feel like it's slipping through someone else's fingers. So pause, breathe, and say this to yourself like it's a command. My money story starts over today. And this time, I write it. Every thought is a seed, and the mind, it doesn't care what kind you plant. It just grows whatever you water. If you feed it worry, you get anxiety. If you feed it doubt, you get hesitation. If you feed it, I can't afford that, you get a life that proves you right. Because thoughts multiply. They become belief. Belief becomes action. Action becomes outcome. And before you know it, you built a life around an idea that was never meant to stay. But here's the thing. Most people don't guard their thoughts. They just accept them. They think a thought is truth just because it shows up. I'll never get ahead. People like me just don't make that kind of money. It's selfish to want more. And they repeat those thoughts until they feel like facts. But facts are built, not found. So the question is, what thoughts are you multiplying? Because the mind listens. It believes you, even when you're lying to yourself. And when you keep telling yourself that money is stressful, success is impossible, or wealth is for other people, your brain doesn't argue. It just adapts. It builds neural pathways to support your statement. It filters out abundance and zooms in on struggle. It puts you on autopilot for limitation. That's how powerful your mind is. It doesn't just reflect your world, it shapes it. So if you want to reprogram your mind for wealth, you have to take ownership of what you repeat. Stop saying, I'm broke. Stop saying, I can't. Stop turning temporary struggle into permanent identity and start using your thoughts on purpose. Say, I'm open to receiving more. Say, I'm learning how to handle wealth. Say, I'm the kind of person who attracts opportunity. It might not feel true yet. That's okay. Say it anyway. Because repetition builds belief, and belief builds your life. You're not just repeating words, you're laying tracks. And soon your mind will start sending new ideas along those tracks. ideas that open doors, ideas that feel possible, ideas that make wealth feel natural, not foreign. But it starts with what you think when no one's watching, when you're alone, when you're tired, when money feels tight. That's when reprogramming matters most. Not in the good moments, but in the ones that used to break you. So think wisely, because you're not just building thoughts, you're multiplying outcomes. You weren't born afraid of money. You weren't born ashamed of wanting more. You weren't born thinking small. You were taught to. Somewhere between childhood and survival, someone handed you the story. There's not enough. Be realistic. People like us don't get rich. And maybe you believed it, not because it felt right, but because it was all you heard. You watched people stress over bills. You saw arguments about spending. You felt the fear when something broke and there was no money to fix it. And without realizing it, you started breathing in scarcity like air. Not enough time, not enough support, not enough options, not enough money. But that belief isn't yours. It's inherited. You absorbed it from parents who struggled, from teachers who meant well, from a system built to keep you working, not thriving. And now, here you are, wanting more, dreaming bigger, but dragging a mindset that wasn't built for abundance. That's why it feels hard. That's why you keep sabotaging. That's why wealth seems close but always out of reach, because you're trying to build a life of freedom with the tools of limitation. But listen closely. Scarcity isn't natural. It's learned, and anything learned can be unlearned. Abundance, on the other hand, that's your original setting. Look at nature. It doesn't hold back. It grows, multiplies, expands. The same force that designed the stars designed you. You were born with potential, with imagination, with the ability to create value from thin air. But scarcity taught you to doubt it, to play small, to wait your turn, to fear money instead of partnering with it. So if you want to reprogram your mind for wealth, you have to start by recognizing the fear isn't yours, the shame isn't yours. The not enough story? It's borrowed. Return it. It doesn't belong to you. Start remembering who you were before the world made you forget. You were creative. You were curious. You were bold. Abundance lives in that version of you. The one who didn't question dreams. The one who asked, why not me? So go back. Not to stay there, but to reclaim what was yours before you learned to play small. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remember who you were before scarcity became your script. Because abundance isn't just a mindset, it's your birthright, and it's been waiting for you to remember. Your mind is a magnet, and like any magnet, it pulls in what matches its frequency, not what you wish for, what you expect. If you expect struggle, you'll find it. If you expect rejection, you'll get it. If you expect small checks, missed chances, barely enough, your life will quietly match that script, not because you're cursed, but because you're aligned with lack. That's how powerful the mind is. It doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you're ready for. And most people, they're only ready for the life they've already seen. They believe in what's around them, not what's within them. They think more money means more luck, more contacts, more time. But the real shift happens when you start expecting more because you've trained your mind to attract it. Your thoughts are instructions. Your feelings are the charge. Your expectations, they're the signal. So what are you signaling? Every time you say, I hope this works out, you're broadcasting doubt. Every time you say, that's not for people like me, you're shrinking your frequency down to what you already know, and you'll never rise above the vibration you live in daily. If you want to attract wealth, you have to become wealth. You have to think like someone who believes money flows. You have to walk like someone who expects to win. You have to speak like someone who stopped apologizing for wanting more. This isn't delusion, this is design. Because your reality isn't built with effort alone, it's shaped by expectation. So train it. Wake up and affirm the truth, even before it shows up. Say, money finds me because I know what to do with it. Opportunities come because I'm prepared to receive them. I attract solutions, not stress. And at first, your old mind will argue. It will whisper, be careful. Don't get your hopes up. Who do you think you are? But that voice? That's the echo of your past. It's not your truth. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent. Keep tuning your thoughts. Keep choosing belief. Keep training the magnet of your mind until it no longer reaches for fear, but for freedom. Because once your expectations rise, your reality won't have a choice but to follow. You were taught to hustle, grind, earn every breath. You were told that if you worked hard enough, you'd make it. And maybe you've been working hard ever since, staying late, saying yes, running on empty. But still, the money doesn't match. The progress feels slow. The life you want keeps slipping out of reach. So what gives? Here's the truth no one tells you. Hard work alone doesn't create wealth. It never did. If it did, every exhausted person you know would be rich by now, but they're not. They're tired, they're loyal, they're dependable, and still stuck. Because effort without alignment is wasted energy. You don't get rich by working harder. You get rich by thinking differently, by choosing clarity over chaos, strategy over stress, vision over volume. The problem is, most people are addicted to struggle. They don't feel worthy unless they're drained, unless they're proving their value through pain. But pain is not the point. Yes, work matters. Yes, discipline is key, but not at the expense of wisdom. You don't get paid for how hard you work. You get paid for the problems you solve, the energy you bring, the confidence you carry. That's why two people can work the same hours and one gets rich while the other gets resentful. It's not about time. It's about transformation. So stop worshiping hard work as if it's the only currency that matters. Start honoring smart work, aligned work. Work that supports your future, not just your bills. Because if you keep trading your peace for a paycheck, you'll spend your life surviving, never building. And that's not wealth. That's quiet suffering. It takes courage to step back and ask, is this work actually working? Am I building something scalable or just staying busy? Am I expanding my mind or just repeating routines? Am I allowing abundance or still trying to earn permission? Because real wealth doesn't arrive just because you sweat. It shows up when your mind stops blocking it, when you stop proving yourself to people who don't even pay you. When you stop chasing approval and start choosing value. Work hard, yes, but make sure the effort feeds your future, not just your fear. Because when you combine discipline with vision, strategy with self-worth, momentum with belief, then wealth begins. But if all you ever do is grind without grace, push without pause, give without asking, you won't rise, you'll wear out. So ask yourself, am I building wealth or just burning time? The answer changes everything. You say you want more, but deep down a voice whispers, is that selfish? You think about wealth, freedom, abundance, but then guilt creeps in. You remember what they said? Don't be greedy. Be grateful for what you have. Wanting more means you're ungrateful. So now you carry a dream in one hand and shame in the other, and they cancel each other out. You take 2 steps forward, then sabotage the third. You say, I want success, but your nervous system says, be careful, don't stand out. That guilt? It's not yours. It was planted by people who settled, by voices who feared wealth, by systems that taught you to feel bad for rising if others stayed behind. But here's the truth. Wanting more doesn't mean you're greedy. It means you're growing. You don't feel guilt for wanting to breathe deeper. You don't apologize for needing more space. Why then do you feel guilty for wanting financial expansion? Wealth doesn't corrupt you. It reveals you. And if your intentions are clean, your success becomes a gift, not a threat. You can serve more, give more, build more, love more when you're not just surviving. But guilt keeps you small. It says, who do you think you are? It says, if you succeed, you'll make others uncomfortable. But listen, shrinking doesn't serve the world, and guilt is not a virtue. It's a distraction. You don't need to explain why you want more. You don't need to shrink to fit someone else's comfort zone. You don't need to dim your ambition to make others feel safe. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to expand. You are allowed to evolve past the limits they were afraid to break. And you can do it with heart, with humility, with integrity. But you must first give yourself permission. Because no one's going to say, it's your time now. You have to declare it. And if the guilt comes up, don't fight it. Understand it. It's just an echo from a version of you who thought staying small was noble. But now you know better. You can be both grateful and hungry, content and ambitious, humble and unstoppable. Wanting more isn't the problem. Feeling guilty about it is. So say it. I am allowed to grow. Say it louder. I am not selfish for evolving. Say it with full belief. My abundance helps everyone I touch. Because when you stop apologizing for your expansion, you become unstoppable. And that's when real wealth begins. You can't build a wealthy life with a poor identity. You can hustle, grind, visualize, and affirm all you want. But if deep down you still see yourself as just getting by, you'll always return to that baseline. Why? Because identity always wins. Your self-image is your thermostat. It sets the limit. And every time life tries to heat up, if your identity isn't aligned with that abundance, you'll unconsciously cool it back down. You'll sabotage the sale. You'll lose the momentum. You'll say things like, "This is too much, too fast." Not because it actually is, but because your inner story says, "I'm not that kind of person." You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. That's why wealth starts with identity, not with action. Because if you still think like someone who struggles, someone who always needs help, someone who plays it safe, you'll build systems that support survival, not abundance. And here's the hardest part. Changing your identity means letting go of the old you. The you who made just enough feel normal. The you who found comfort in chaos. The you who bonded with people by complaining about money. That version of you, they don't fit where you're going. And it's not because you're better than them, it's because you've outgrown the story. Wealth requires a new narrative, a new way of speaking, thinking, deciding. You don't just say, "I want to be rich." You say, "I am the kind of person who builds wealth with clarity, discipline, and peace." And then you behave like that person, long before the money shows up. Because identity isn't formed by results, it's formed by repetition. Every time you choose belief over fear, vision over doubt, ownership over blame, you're shifting. Every time you take the higher path, hold the bigger standard, speak with more certainty, you're becoming. This is the wealth identity shift. Not external, internal. And once your identity changes, everything else aligns. You don't have to force results. You don't have to chase. You just show up as the person who already belongs in the life you're building. That's what the wealthy do. They don't wait to believe. They decide who they are. And the world adjusts. So today ask yourself, who am I being? Not in your words, but in your energy, your standards, your boundaries. Because the future doesn't arrive for the person you were. It arrives for the person you're finally becoming. You want change. You want wealth. You want freedom. But wanting isn't enough. Not if your thoughts keep circling back to the same old script. Because the mind doesn't respond to intensity. It responds to consistency. It doesn't care what you say once. It listens to what you repeat. Every day, every hour, every quiet moment when no one's watching. That's how your beliefs are shaped. Not through breakthroughs, but through patterns. And if the pattern in your head says, money is hard, success is rare, I'm not ready, then guess what? Your life will follow that rhythm. And that rhythm becomes reality. So how do you shift it? Repetition. Not blind positivity, but intentional rewiring. Start small. Start honest. Start with a thought that feels slightly better than the one that's been holding you down. Instead of "I'm always behind," say "I'm building momentum." Instead of "I'll never figure this out," say "I'm learning what works." It's not magic, it's math. Repetition strengthens the signal. The more you repeat the truth, the new truth, the more your brain believes it. It builds neural pathways. It starts recognizing patterns that match what you're telling it. And suddenly, you see new options. You notice new ideas. You feel a little more powerful. Not because the world changed, but because you did. This is how you reprogram your mind for wealth. Not by shouting affirmations once in a mirror, but by feeding your brain a new diet of thoughts. Thoughts that match the life you actually want. Thoughts that create safety around success. Thoughts that feel like home in a wealthier version of you. Because make no mistake, you've already been using repetition. You just didn't know it. Every time you've said "nothing ever works for me," you reinforced a belief. Every time you've thought "I'll never get ahead," you wrote it deeper into your system. Now, you're choosing a new loop. A loop that supports your rise, that builds self-trust, that gets stronger with every repetition. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes effort. But it works. Because when your thoughts change, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your outcomes shift. And before long, what used to feel impossible starts to feel expected. Not because life got easier, but because your mind got stronger. So repeat this. I am becoming someone who expects wealth and builds it from the inside out. Say it often. Say it when it feels fake. Say it until it feels like truth. Because repetition doesn't just change your language, it changes your life. You can't out-hustle a belief system that says you'll lose anyway. You can't outwork a mind that still thinks money is dangerous, success is temporary, or freedom isn't meant for people like you. And yet, most people try. They grind harder, wake up earlier, push longer. But inside, they're running on old code. And that code says, don't grow too fast. Don't ask for too much. Don't be too confident. You'll lose it all. So no matter what they build, they quietly break it. Not because they want to, but because the system inside them can't handle expansion. That's the real trap. You think you need more action, when what you really need is better programming. Because your subconscious doesn't care what you want. It only responds to what you believe. And beliefs are sneaky. They hide in your tone, your habits, your silence. They show up when you reject the compliment, when you undercharge, when you delay the decision that could have changed everything. You think it's fear, but it's deeper than that. It's identity. It's familiarity. It's your internal software saying, this is who we are, and we don't go beyond this line. That's why some people feel guilt the moment life starts to go well. They were programmed for the valley, not the mountain. But here's the good news. Programming can be updated. It's not permanent, it's just practiced. And what was practiced can be rewritten, not by force, but by awareness. You have to notice your inner dialogue, the quiet rules you obey without realizing it. Whose voice told you not to dream too big? Who made you feel guilty for wanting more? Who taught you that struggle was more noble than success? It's time to break that loop, because if you don't upgrade the program, you'll keep sabotaging the result. You'll self-destruct at the edge of progress. You'll chase, then collapse, build, then backtrack. Not because you're weak, but because the system inside you is outdated. So write a new script, one where wealth feels normal, where ease is allowed, where success doesn't scare you. It stabilizes you. Practice that. Reinforce that. Make that your new default. Because once your programming supports the future you want, you won't need to force results anymore. You'll just flow in the direction you were always meant to move. Most people think they need more money, but that's not what's missing. What they really need is permission. Permission to want more. Permission to receive. Permission to stop struggling, even if struggle is all they've ever known. You say you want wealth, but do you believe you're allowed to have it? Or do you flinch the moment opportunity arrives? Do you push it away with guilt, with doubt, with not yet and not me? That hesitation, it's not about money, it's about worth. You've been taught your whole life to wait for approval, to earn every inch of progress, to make sure no one thinks you're moving too fast. And because of that, you've built invisible barriers between yourself and abundance. You delay, you discount, you underask, you over-explain, not because you lack skill, but because deep down, you haven't given yourself full permission to rise. But here's the truth. No one's coming to grant it. No teacher, no boss, no parent, no partner. This isn't school. There's no gold star for waiting your turn. You rise when you decide you're done waiting. You expand when you choose to stop apologizing. Wealth responds not to need, but to readiness. You don't need more credentials. You don't need one more breakthrough. You need to say, I am allowed to live well, allowed to think big, allowed to speak boldly without shrinking for someone else's comfort. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. Because the people who grow, the people who build, the people who magnetize abundance, they're not always the smartest, the loudest, or the most qualified. They're just the ones who stopped waiting. They moved, they asked, they showed up like it was already theirs, not with ego, with certainty. So let me ask you, what are you still asking permission for? To raise your price? To pursue that idea? To live like your future matters more than your past? That hesitation is costing you. Because life doesn't reward the best planner. It rewards the most willing. And when you're finally willing to say yes without guilt, to show up without apology, to own your growth without asking for confirmation, That's when the floodgates open. Not because you suddenly became more worthy, but because you finally believed you always were. So stop waiting. Declare it now. I give myself permission to grow, to rise, to receive. Say it until it's real, because once you believe you're allowed, you'll stop asking and start becoming. Words create worlds, and you've been speaking yours into existence whether you knew it or not. Every time you say, I'm broke, I can't afford it, money's just not my thing, your mind listens, your nervous system listens, the universe listens, and slowly your reality bends to match your language. Because language isn't just communication, it's construction. The words you repeat become the walls you live in. And most people, they're living in cages they built with casual phrases. They joke about struggle. They normalize stress. They say things like, I'm just trying to survive, and wonder why they never thrive. But the mind doesn't understand sarcasm. It understands pattern. So when you keep speaking limitation, even playfully, you train your brain to expect less, to reach smaller, to settle quicker. And you don't even notice it happening. You think you're just venting, but really you're programming. So if you want wealth, you have to speak it. Not just once, not just when you're hyped, but consistently. Especially when doubt shows up. You don't say, I hope I can make this work. You say, I create results. You don't say, I'm trying to get out of debt. You say, I'm building financial power, not because you're lying, but because you're leading. Your words are instructions to your mind. They tell it what to look for, what to believe, what to build. That's why successful people speak differently. They speak from the future, from vision, from ownership. They say, this is what I'm creating. This is who I'm becoming. This is how I move, because this is who I am. And the world responds, not instantly, but inevitably. So stop saying things that keep you small. Stop shrinking your story to match someone else's comfort. Speak from where you're going, not where you've been. It might feel weird at first. You might feel fake, but repetition builds belief. Say it anyway. I attract solutions. I'm good with money. I make decisions like someone who trusts their future, not because you've arrived, but because you're on your way. Your words are the bridge. They carry you from survival to strategy, from doubt to discipline, from hoping to having. So build that bridge carefully and walk it every day. Because once your words shift, your world follows. Money doesn't follow stress. It doesn't follow hustle. It doesn't follow noise. Money follows clarity. It flows toward direction. It responds to certainty. It multiplies where the vision is clear and the energy behind it is clean. But most people are chasing money with fog in their mind. They say they want freedom but can't define it. They say they want success but have no idea what it looks like. So they move in circles, doing more, trying harder, never stopping to ask, what am I actually building? And money feels that confusion. It senses the lack of purpose, and it stays away, because money is a mirror, not a motivator. It reflects your level of clarity. It shows up when you stop being vague and start being deliberate. Ask yourself, do you know what your wealth is for? Is it just for escape, or is it for expansion? Are you trying to get out of something, or are you moving towards something bigger? Because without clarity, you'll build from fear, and anything built in fear will eventually collapse. But when you're clear, truly clear on what you're here to create, everything changes. Your decisions get faster, your standards rise, your distractions lose power, and money, it follows. Not out of magic, but out of alignment. Because clarity gives your mind a mission. And a mind with a mission is magnetic. You stop second-guessing. You stop waiting. You stop asking for permission. You move, you build, you trust. So get clear. Crystal clear. What does wealth look like for you? Not what social media says, not what your parents wanted. You. What life are you building? What does your day look like? How do you earn, spend, give, and grow? Get specific, get detailed, get honest, because the more precise your vision, the more power you give it. Vague goals create vague results, but sharp vision cuts through resistance. And once your vision is clear, you'll feel the shift. No more chasing, no more guessing. Just action that feels like alignment. Just progress that feels like purpose. And money, it'll find its way to you. Not because you're lucky, but because you finally know exactly what to do with it. You want guarantees, safety, certainty. But wealth doesn't live there. It lives beyond the line most people are too afraid to cross. You don't get rich by avoiding risk. You get rich by learning how to walk with it. And that scares people, because we've been taught that safety equals success, that comfort is the reward, that if you plan well enough, you won't have to be brave. But that's not how this works. The life you want requires moves you've never made. It demands you step forward without knowing how it ends, that you bet on yourself before the evidence appears. That's risk, not recklessness, but courage. The willingness to try, to trust, to take the leap, even when your knees are shaking. Most people stay poor not because they're lazy, but because they're scared. Scared of failing, scared of looking foolish, scared of losing what little they have. But they forget. Every breakthrough began with someone who risked being uncomfortable to become undeniable. That business you admire, it started with a scary yes. That mentor you follow, they once knew nothing, but moved anyway. That dream you keep postponing, it's waiting for you on the other side of hesitation. And the only way across is risk. You don't have to jump blindly. You don't have to burn everything down. But you do have to move, decide, invest. Say yes before it's easy. Because if you keep waiting for things to feel safe, you'll stay exactly where you are. And maybe you'll be comfortable. Maybe you'll avoid mistakes. But you'll never grow. And deep down, you'll always know it. There's a different kind of safety, the kind that comes from building yourself, the kind that comes from knowing, no matter what happens, I'll figure it out. That kind of safety only comes through risk, by doing the hard thing, by learning under pressure, by facing fear until it loses its grip. So ask yourself, what's the cost of staying safe? What dream are you denying in the name of comfort? What wealth are you postponing while you wait for perfect timing? Because that timing, it's not coming, but your moment is. And when it does, you'll either rise or retreat. So choose risk, not because it's easy, but because it's the only way forward. And once you embrace that, you stop playing defense and start building a life you no longer need to escape from. What would happen if you stopped waiting for proof and started thinking like wealth was already yours? What belief will you let go of today? What thought will you choose to repeat instead? Drop it in the comments. Share your shift. And if this message moved you, please consider subscribing.